Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adele Newton. Thank you for joining us today. I'll be moderating, but before we start, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we're on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the effect of residential schools and colonialism on Indigenous families and communities, and to consider how we are and can, each in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So it's my pleasure today to moderate this panel on industry research collaboration, the benefits and challenges. And I'll start by introducing our panelists. Emily Gordon is an advisor business development at Mitacs, which is a national independent not-for-profit that funds collaborative research projects between academia and external organizations. In her role, Emily has connected several industry and community partners with academic experts to solve research and innovation challenges across various sectors and disciplines. Ig Kalenko is Executive Director at the Smart Manufacturing and Advanced Recycling Technologies, or SMART, Center at Conestoga College, a leading polytechnic institute in Waterloo Region. Ig oversees applied research that deals with high performance and ICT-supported advanced manufacturing and advanced recycling, with an emphasis on robotics and automation, mechanical, electronic, and software product design and prototyping. The Industrial Internet of Things, or IIoT, data analytics, machine learning, digital twinning, cybersecurity, and augmented and virtual reality solutions for industry. That's a mouthful, Ig. And Camelia Nunez is Manager of Operations at the Lazaridis Institute at Wilfrid Laurier University. Camelia has extensive experience in connecting researchers with industry in her past roles at the University of Waterloo as Director of Innovations and Partnerships in the Faculty of Mathematics and Manager of Corporate Research Partnerships, as well as Business Development at Mitacs earlier in her career. Moreover, Camelia went through the research commercialization experience herself while building an ed tech startup based in part on her research in multilingualism. And I have had a career doing this. I've developed and managed a broad range of projects and programs, both on industry side and the university side. So we come to you with a lot of experience in this area, and we're going to talk about what the benefits are and what the challenges are on doing this. So welcome, everyone. And I'm going to start with goals and benefits, and I'll just go to each of you and ask you, we'll start the conversation. What are the primary goals of these collaborations? Why do we do this? I'll start with you, Camelia.
Oh, okay. I think that the innovation is probably the primary goal, right? Helping companies advance their innovation agendas through cutting edge research at universities that some of our faculty is conducting in different areas. I would say, that's probably the main driver for Canadian government grants as well that are supporting this type of collaboration. We're a highly educated country that is supposed to be producing innovative businesses and innovation. There's a lot of it in post-secondary institutions, as you know. So advancing the innovation agenda for individual companies, but also for Canada as a whole, I think is the primary reason why we try to encourage this type of collaboration as well. And I mean, for another area that's I'm personally very passionate about, which is I think that Emily can talk to more, is this whole opportunity for grad students to get a chance to explore careers outside of academia.
And you did mention government funding. So Emily, maybe you could touch on that a little bit, as well as the grad student aspect of the collaboration piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the main drivers, at least that we recognize for these collaborations, is to enhance or develop, technology products and services across Canada. MyTax has the pleasure of being able to support all disciplines and, even interdisciplinary projects, which can play, a significant role in being able to commercialize projects and outcomes from projects. But when it comes to, the funding portion, a lot of funding organizations out there do want to see that there are collaborations that exist between industry or community partners and the academic community. And so a lot of, programs, MyTax being one of them, as well as, NSERC Alliance, even some of the SSHRC grants out there, they do require industry or community partners to be involved and even provide their own funding and their own skin in the game in order to be able to access larger grants. And for the most part, at least for MyTax, the majority of the funding does go towards the talent development. And so that's something that is perhaps maybe not necessarily always a goal for these collaborations, but is certainly an outcome, at least that we like to see, and how we can develop HQP within the academic sector to have, specialized skills to bring to industry or to further their academic career.
Thanks, Emily. And Ig, I know that in your lab, in your Smart Center, you have, it's largely based on collaboration with industry. So can you add to what Camelia and Emily have talked about in terms of goals for these collaborations?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Emily and Camelia had noted it very well. Canadian industry is seeking solutions for innovation, solutions to industrial challenges and so forth. And for us at the college level, maybe a little bit of a different perspective than the universities. We pull in our undergrad students to support all of our industry research work. Everything's collaborative, so we don't initiate our own projects. Industry comes to us, and then we look for the appropriate funding to support those industry partners. MyTax being one of them. So glad to see that we have a funder on the panel today. For us, this is ostensibly about HQP training. So we are looking to, again, train our undergrad students through the applied research work with industry to become that next generation of really highly skilled workers in it doesn't matter if it's the tech industry or automotive or what have you. Again, it's a really, really important aspect that we're measured against is that success in generating HQPs. At the end of the day, colleges are all about vocational training, and applied research just aids in that and gives the students a really, really incredible opportunity to get the taste of how industry works, to actually see innovation firsthand, to be involved in innovation. Nothing more satisfying than seeing a college student having their name in a patent that comes out at the end of a project. This is the kind of stuff that 20, 30 years ago, nobody would have thought colleges would be involved in, but now these opportunities exist across the board, which is fantastic. So hopefully that helps answer the question about the goals.
Well, and so, we talk about HQP, highly qualified personnel, and granting, but there's certainly other benefits to researchers. And Camelia, I'm going to go to you because you've had, I know, your experience in my alma mater at the University of Waterloo Faculty of Math. You've connected researchers with industry to do collaborative projects. What other benefits have there been to researchers as a result of those collaborations?
Before I was in math, I'm just going to sort of add a little bit to that to give the context. So before, when I was in the Faculty of Math, I mostly work with computer science researchers, since the School of Computer Science is part of math. But prior to that, when I was part of the Office of Research at UW on the corporate research partnerships team, my focus was arts, at the Faculty of Arts and Applied Health Sciences. So my sort of research partnership background is quite broad and eclectic, if you will. Doing this type of work in arts is very different than doing this type of work in computer science. So I would say that certain disciplines are more I guess more clearly applied, like computer science, right? So you would expect that researchers in those areas will be more inclined to engage in this type of work. And I think the benefits that they see is specifically that applied part of it, right? Universities are often viewed as this theoretical sort of place, which is true. Like there's a lot of theoretical work, but there's also faculty members that are interested in the applied aspect of it, and they want to see some of these research projects that they're working on having an impact in the companies, and just seeing their work in use. So I think that's one of the benefits. The other one is, of course, funding. From the researcher's perspective, it's a way of attracting students. Companies pay for this, obviously, and then they're able to leverage the industry funding with government funding. And sometimes, you can double and triple that amount of dollars. So it can be quite lucrative in that respect, right? And then they're able to attract the type of students that they want to attract for the projects that they're working on. So I think that there's various benefits to that, and of course, faculty members always take pride in their students doing well post graduation. So another benefit will be that their students already have a foot in industry. Oftentimes they end up getting hired by these companies that they're working with. So the relation that not only is the student doing well post graduation, but also the faculty member maintains these industry relationships for the future and for other future opportunities that can be brought to the partnerships in the university.
Thanks, Camelia. And I know, Ig, in your work, because we've talked about this before in another context, the work you do with in collaboration with industry often, well, most of the time, moves the research forward. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, if you could, in terms of a benefit.
Yeah, because when you think about it again from the college perspective, pulling undergrad students and faculty that are working with those undergrad students to begin with, students find again the mentorship is a really, really great benefit to the faculty. Again, seeing the theory that they're teaching come to life through these projects. One of the big benefits for faculty involved in applied research at the college level is being able to bring those lessons learned from these projects back into the curriculum. So it's not just a one-time injection of knowledge and learning for the students and the faculty working on a specific project, but it's that long-term legacy of that knowledge being brought back into the classroom to help improve curriculum going forward. So then future students benefit from that innovation. So that's a really great outcome, I think. Student researcher level, again, it's being exposed to that cutting edge opportunity that they might not have otherwise been able to do in a regular co-op job opportunity. So I think for undergrad student researchers, it's just that exposure to where innovation happens and how innovation happens that really opens their eyes. And we see again those students when they finish their co-ops, be it 4 months up to 16 months at Conestoga, when they come back to the classroom, that maturity level has increased significantly. They are so well prepared for what's left in their academic career, let alone the readiness for industry once they graduate. So lots of great outcomes for both the faculty level researchers as well as the student level researchers.
And Emily, from the funding agency point of view, and actually from your experience, when Mitacs is looking for these collaborations, what does the organization expect the benefits to be? Obviously, we've talked about HQP, but I'm sure there must be other reasons why the industry portion is important for the funding.
Yeah, so our main kind of mandate and goal is to really help foster and drive that innovation. And so, when you do have these unique collaborations, kind of piggybacking off of what the others have said, is really that ultimate opportunity to potentially commercialize your work collectively. But then also the knowledge transfer piece is huge, whether it's, bringing those findings back into the classroom and being able to further develop the students that have participated on that project and, the future generation. That's really what we want to see when we are reviewing proposals, is that, first and foremost, you're advancing at least a portion of the area of research that you're looking in. Of course, being able to develop a patent or commercialize your product is a great added benefit. But as far as my tax, I guess as far as our mandate is, we really just want to help be able to bring these two different types of organizations together, with the hopes that maybe down the road there will be opportunities for to further advance that area of work.
So, excuse me, tech transfer is really important, I think, for everybody concerned, on both sides. I put this question in as kind of a way to get some unexpected benefits. From your experience in working in these collaborations over the years, can any of you point to something that happened as a benefit that really wasn't expected, but turned out to be serendipitously, a great reason for the collaboration? Ig, I'm going to go to you first.
There's my mute button.
There you go. And it's okay if the
It's
answer
an
is
interesting
no.
question, because again, for us to say we got something unexpected out of a relationship, that could point to, for example, the fact that a company was so thrilled with the work that we had done for them that they come back year after year after year for additional research. So that's sort of a long-term goal, obviously, but sometimes we're surprised. It's like, oh wow, I guess we really did a great bit of work with you, that you're coming back so often for additional support. I think, if you look at it from the industry perspective, there's an awful lot of that for the college system. A lot of the industry partners go, we had no idea that colleges do this. So I think universities, they're so well known for research, both at the fundamental and applied levels. We're still in that process of having to educate industry to say, we do this stuff, and we do this regularly now as colleges. So sometimes I get surprised. It's like, wow, you never heard about this whatsoever, and people say, no, we just so maybe that points to bad marketing at the college level. Who knows?
Well, no, actually, that's a great segue, because
Yeah.
the next thing I was going to ask was, what are the benefits to industry?
Yeah.
Actually, can I add?
Yeah,
Can I answer
absolutely.
that
Camille,
question too?
yeah.
Yeah, because I actually have a fun story
Great.
about that. So when I was working in Office of Research and Corporate Research Partnership team, and like I said, my focus was arts, and it was challenging, because a lot of people in arts are not necessarily interested in this type of stuff. When they hear industry collaboration, it's not necessarily the top of their minds or agendas. So anyway, I decided to have an industry event and invite a bunch of, I just sent the invite. I work with the Associate Dean Research at the time for the faculty. So, we're like, okay, let's have this event. It was downtown Kitchener. It was actually at the museum. So we had a bunch of companies come out, and I was so nervous, because I really did not know what researchers will come. So anyway, so we organized this event, and it turned out that we had about like 35 researchers that came from arts. And the serendipitous part of it was that none of them knew that they're actually interested in working with industry. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting to find out that, now I know, because I've been in post-secondary long enough throughout my career, but people don't really come out of their circle. So if someone is in the Department of Psychology, they're not necessarily interacting with someone from econ or with someone from philosophy or social or whatever, right? So yeah, they just kind of ran into each other there, and they were like, oh my God, yeah, wow, this is cool. So anyway, it was kind of cool, because then it became like a vibe of some of the profs that wanted to work with industry. So it was kind of a cool outcome that I didn't really expect from it, but yeah, it was fun.
Well, and that's a good outcome because, at least in my experience, bringing some of those different groups together to work on a problem is really what makes it a strong project, not just
Mhm.
with the industry partner, but different partners from different areas. So it's not always just an engineering project or an arts project, but the combination. And do you
Mhm.
see that, Emily, in the projects you're looking at MyTax, that it brings different groups of people together that might not have otherwise collaborated?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the projects that we support, well, the majority of the projects that we support do need to have a strong, academic research lens applied to them. But prior to that, sometimes there is that development piece that, maybe is separate in terms of the type of expertise that you require. And then you get into more experimental. So there's so many different layers that I think different researchers from different backgrounds can really come together to equally contribute to a project. And MyTax does really provide a platform to be able to do that. Those are undoubtedly very challenging to work on because you do have, different expertise coming together with, they have a different perspective. But when it does come together, it's really nice to see.
And so, we had, I mean, all of this is talking about the researchers and the benefits to research, but,
Mhm.
and I know, Ig, you've worked in industry as of all of you in one way or another, but maybe you can speak to, Ig, you could speak to the industry benefit that comes from these interactions as well.
Yeah, I think our primary industry benefits, it's that access to potentially, cutting edge equipment that we have available through our research centers that they would otherwise not have access to. I think, again, I can't speak for any of the universities in terms of how they deal with the intellectual property, but the college system default is industry owns all IP resulting from projects. So for a lot of our industry partners, they're thrilled with that because they don't have to worry about licensing or royalties and so forth. And I think that tends to make industry much more accepting of this type of collaboration. We sometimes have to explain to them, we're not consultants here. We're not the experts. This is, again, we're training our students through these projects and bringing them to a level of expertise that gets them to the finish point of generating the deliverables that they're hoping for. So I think for the industry partners that understand that, they recognize, again, the biggest benefit, I think, at the end of the day is that these students, they know the business, they understand the problems and challenges that industry partner has. They know the culture of the industry partner and so forth, and they're perfect employees for that partner going forward. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly the same as what comes out of university level applied research as well. So I think that's the funding. What else can you say?
Yeah.
I ran a business back in the 90s, and where was this back in the 90s? The plethora of these great funding sources that we have available to industry today. So there's so many benefits for industry. We can't cover them in whatever one hour today. So we'll leave it at that.
Amelia?
To add on to what Ig's saying, I think that, it always depends on the size of the company. Like, we work with large corporations that obviously have, huge R&D labs themselves. So a lot of sort of internal researchers as well, but other companies don't have that, so they maybe have smaller R&D departments. So these people really benefit from being immersed on campus with people that are sort of like-minded, and they're very much focused on the topics that they're passionate about. And so it's a great opportunity. I know, we work with companies that have sent people regularly to campus, and they attend grad student meetings and like lab meetings or presentations, or they're often part of like thesis or defense presentations and that type of stuff. So I think it's a great opportunity for them in that respect. And there are some companies that even ended up on campus at UW, as we all know, right? So they even opened a location on campus for that reason, right? So that gets a little bit more complicated, but I think just the idea of being involved and being sort of in the midst of this knowledge and this research happening is a huge benefit. And the funding, I mean, I'm going to say that again, many of these companies will put in, $100,000 and they'll get $300,000 out of it, right? So you can't really beat that after you're done matching with all the different grants. It's a pretty sweet deal. So, there's quite the benefit there.
That's a win-win for sure. Yeah. And Emily, since we're talking about matching, I'll come to you and ask you, can you add to what Ig and Camellia have talked about benefits for industry?
Yeah, just kind of echoing what I see as being, at least what I've heard over, my last two and a half years at Mitacs, is really the access to infrastructure, access to, specific expertise that are housed within the academic community, whether it's at a college or university level. There's a lot of really expensive equipment out there that, organized companies just, either there's no point in them purchasing it just for, a few different projects, or it's just not accessible to them. And so being able to access that, computing power is another thing. There's a lot of programs out there that do offer that for the academic side, but being able to tap into that as an industry, or as an industrial company is, can be extremely beneficial. So those are kind of the things that I see, and equally as much as a lot of the funders do want to see that industry is contributing to a project, the other side is true as well, is that funders do want to contribute to academic research, and so there does usually need to be an academic team involved in a lot of these industry based projects.
Well, certainly we've talked about the benefits and how great all this is, but the real catch is, how do we make those connections and how do we make it happen, right? And by the way, I was remiss in saying, for those people in the audience, if you have questions along the way, please just put them in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. But yeah, how do you make those connections? And Camellia, I'm going to start with you, since that was your job for a while.
Yeah.
And tell us, what are the how are good matches made between potential partners?
I'm just going to start by saying that this is not a, immediate thing. This is a relationship building exercise, and it takes time. So it's not something that you do overnight kind of thing. So I think that just putting that out there to sort of setting expectations is important, but I think that, how do you do it is, you really have to listen. Like, you're trying to sell something to industry that is not a product and it's not yours to sell. You're selling a prof's research who may or may not want to engage in that, right? So not everybody, like I said, is interested in engaging, right? Profs have a pretty sweet deal. Some of them are just excited to do what they're doing and working on their research and not interested in pursuing this type of industry path. And that's totally okay. I think the part of the work is understanding who those profs are. And, for me, when I was in computer science and math, there's a few hundred profs there that that you kind of you really have to go through that and understand, okay, who is the type of prof that wants to do this type of stuff, and then you go the next step to try to actually understand what they do, and that in itself is an undertaking, because these people are really smart people working on really difficult things. So Adele, you were in quantum for a while, so I think you can identify. So, in computer science, like, I would go to some of their lab meetings and I'd be like, what are you even saying right now? Because I cannot follow. So, I would get a grad student or even the prof themselves to just kind of be like, okay, can you dumb this down for me a little bit so I know how to explain this? So I think that's sort of the second step for me, was always really trying to understand so that you can coherently describe what they're doing to a company. And then the sort of external sort of relationship building component is just, going to trade shows, going to industry conferences, understanding, what's out there, what are companies looking for, making those connections. Certainly, you're not going to build partnerships by sitting around your house or your home office or your university office. Like, it's the type of job that, yeah, sure, you work for the university, and a lot of it is getting to know the researchers and what they do, but the partnerships are out of the building. So get out of the building, as they say, and go where the companies are. So that's, and sometimes you have to kind of match priorities, right? Like if there's, if for example, at UW, like we have a pretty huge, like, say, machine learning sort of group that's doing really cool stuff, right? So if a lot of faculty that were interested in that type of stuff were in that group, then I would focus my partnership sort of outreach in that type of company area. So I would, specifically find industry organizations, conferences, that type of stuff that I could reach out to connect. So those are some of my strategies that I've used, but definitely it takes time and it can be very, very frustrating. But once you've built sort of a base, it becomes a lot easier. And then, I mean, there's a whole funding component that's kind of like just learning what every grant is about and how you can bring in the grants. Luckily, most Office of Research have pretty good staff that are really familiar with the different type of grants. So then you can bring in some help on that. But you're often, when you're talking to a company, you have to kind of on your feet be like, okay, so if you put in this much money, then we can match this with NSERC, and then we can use some MyTax, and then we can use some of this, and that can quickly become this. And then, there are numbers people, so you kind of have to have it really quickly in your pitch. So yeah, that's just kind of what.
Well, that absolutely resonates with my experience, that partnerships, like anything in any kind of partnership, take time. And if you think it's going to happen overnight, you're fooling yourself. But Ig, I know you've had a wealth of experience in this area in what you've been doing. What are the, how are those matches made for you? How do you connect with the right companies?
Right. So again, maybe a little bit of a different perspective, given we're college versus a university. Again, our faculty don't initiate research in that sense. So we expect an industry partner to have to come to us with a challenge, an industry problem that we then look for the right fit for a faculty member or one of our researchers to address, and hire the appropriate student team, and then go ahead and solve that problem. So just like what Camille had mentioned, it's a long process, a lot of meetings. I'm so zoomed out after 2 years of doing nothing but virtual meetings again over the last year, finally being able to get back out into industry, talking to the companies to find out what are the challenges, what are the things you need solved to help you get to that next level of manufacturing, recycling, digital innovation, you name it. So we do have a business developer on staff within the Smart Center. Our Conestoga Office of Research Services has a partnership and engagement manager as well. So between myself and those two other people, we do, again, field a lot of questions directly from industry, coming through websites, through LinkedIn presences, etc. Obviously, since the college supports vocational training and trades and engineering, IT, and so on and so forth, the program advisory committees that are struck to help, again, have industry provide input into our academics also generate then these leads for new business opportunities as well. So, and not to mention, again, 30 years in the industry, lots of connection points and so forth. So, sometimes I'll just get a call out of the blue saying, hey, we understand you do research. Can you help us with this? And take advantage of those types of things. But again, we can't solve everybody's problems. So unfortunately, we sometimes have to say no because you don't qualify for funding. So that's one of our challenges, is that, I'd love to work with more of the startup community, but none of our college-oriented funds. I think MyTax is probably about the closest to be able to support the startup community. But most of them require, again, a minimum of 2 years of business activity, minimum 2 full-time employees, and so forth. So it does sometimes limit who we can talk to, and then hence the necessity to say no. But I think on the whole, it's just a lot of work in terms of nurturing that that relationship, making those industry partners understand what our role is in the innovation cycle, to understand again how the funding works and what their obligations are to match against the funds that are available, and so forth, and eventually arrive at a project plan and a collaboration agreement that makes sense, and get the project going. And I think in some cases we're so successful that we end up having situations where it's like, wow, I don't have enough students now to support 3 or 4 new projects that are coming down the pipeline and so forth. So a good problem to have, but at the same time, these are indicators of success, I think, for what we're doing with industry, and we want the quality, obviously, at the end of the day, in terms of, I hate to just do research for research's sake. It's got to have, again, a good outcome at the end of the day. So sometimes when an industry partner says, we like to do X, and it's like, you know what, that's not research. It doesn't generate new jobs. It doesn't lead to commercialization. It sounds cool, but you know what we'll do is we'll connect you with students in a capstone project and let them do some innovation for you, rather than, again, try to find a way of shoehorning an idea into a funding source that may not support those types of ideas. So at the end of the day, good quality projects lead to good outcomes.
And Emily, again, was talking about the role that MyTax plays. And I know with my experience in when I was working on the company side of things, what's your, we would find that people in the research area were looking for those corporate partners, but didn't necessarily know who to reach out to. How does MyTax help with that? Or what's MyTax role in helping make those connections?
Yeah, that's a great question. So within our team at MyTax, our business development team, I'd say we have kind of 2 types of roles. And so, half of us, or maybe more than half of us, are really focused on the academic side. So one thing that's really, I think, unique and great about MyTax is we have someone similar to me at most universities across Canada and several of the colleges across Canada. And so our role is to really be, for the most part, an expert on the type of research that takes place at our institution. And so that way we can go out and, we can't always promise that we'll be able to bring industry or community partners to the university. But once we have a sense of what that researcher is looking to do in terms of interacting with external partners, we can kind of keep that within our repertoire when we are speaking with companies or partners that want to collaborate with our institution, and be able to ideally facilitate a project. So that's what a good majority of us do at MyTax. We really like to see ourselves as that facilitator. On the other side of that, we do have some team members who are more industry or partner facing, and so their role is to really take those projects from industry and help find meaningful matches at post-secondary institutions across Canada. One thing that's great right now is a lot of stuff is happening virtually, and so you can really make those connections across the country. It's always, more desirable, I think, if you can do these in person. But I think, over the last, I guess it's almost been 3 years now, we've really been able to see how projects still are being, developed and, are having high impact despite not being able to meet in person all the time. But really just being there to help have an understanding of what is going on in the ecosystem that we work in, I think really helps to build these strong partnerships that, potentially lead to high impact projects.
So what I'm hearing just from this conversation is, for researchers who are interested in making those connections but may not know where to start, to find those resources internally, like the corporate partnerships people, the kind of job that Camelia did, like their MyTax rep. And even to your point, Ig, certainly it's important to use your personal connections, whether they've been made through trade shows or conferences or past jobs, or even students that you've graduated that are now working in industry, and you can connect with them to see if they're employer is interested in coming back. So there are a number of resources out there, but we'll talk a little bit more at our next webinar, our follow-up webinar, about that sort of tools for making those connections. But there are resources out there, and I think where there's a will, you just have to find the way to make that connection. But speaking of that, the culture is so different in an academic versus an industry. And maybe it's changing a little bit now that industry is not quite as, the madmen, or even, the big companies that we had in 20 years ago. But how do you navigate? What are some of those challenges that have to be navigated in terms of dealing with the different cultures? And Camelia, you're nodding, so I'm going to go to you first.
Oh my, I don't even know where to start. I think that I think at one point I had created like a setting expectation 1-pager thing that I would give. I didn't call it that, but that's what it was. It was kind of like, I think I called it like some restrict, like some, not restrict, I forget what I called it, but essentially it was just my way of trying to inform and our industry partner of what expectations they can have, because I think I found the biggest thing is companies, they want what they want yesterday, and researchers they're kind of constrained by certain things, right? So, you can't just like automatically have a PhD student to work on this project that the company wants, right? Like, first of all, universities are constrained by terms, right? So you can't have a student start randomly in February, you know what I mean? Students can only start in September, January, or May. That's just how it works, right? So there's an admissions process, there's an application, like, there's all that stuff. So companies don't often understand that. So I just think managing those expectations is really key. And then doing the same on the prof level. So because sometimes, their world is completely different, right? They're just kind of working with, well, it's not working. But for a company, that may mean losing a lot of money if this isn't working, right? So it's just adjusting the mindset that, okay, you're driving an experiment in a lab that may not work is not the same as you're building something for a company that may not work, that may cost them a lot of money, right? So it's that balance of setting expectations. Honestly, a lot of the job is project management. So on my team in math, I hired someone that was helping me out as sort of like the project manager of what was happening, because sometimes like you set up a partnership, it's great, the company has paid, there's a PhD, a master students, there's a team, it's great, you get it started, and then the communication just breaks, and then there's like a shitstorm.
That's the technical term.
The technical term,
It exists.
right?
That term exists.
So I'm just there doing my thing. I'm not checking on this project, but then I'm the one that hears back from, this is what happened, so something that I did was bring in someone on my team to actually be the project manager. So they would meet with the team to sort of go over deadlines and making sure that, like just track progress and that type of stuff. So I think that the challenges are that, like setting expectations on both sides, and then not just saying, okay, we're done, bye, go do your thing. Because you can't always really trust that. Sometimes a few months later, it's like, whoa.
I used to say when I worked, I worked at BlackBerry, I used to say my next job was going to be at the United Nations in trying to manage the two expectations. And so you really described it well. You have the extra component of having undergrad students working on projects, and that has to add another layer of cultural complication in this.
Yeah, it certainly makes it, I wouldn't say it's a tougher job to sell an industry partner on a project. I think, one of the biggest challenges we have is to make industry recognize that, especially for all of the college level funding that we get, these projects are meant to be collaborative applied research. So emphasis on the word collaborative. We can't take a project where the industry partner says, here's the idea, we'll see you in 4 months. It's like, that's not collaboration. That's just consulting. So we have to train our industry partners, and educate them really as to what it means to properly collaborate. So Mitacs is one of the few funds that doesn't require in-kind contributions, but virtually all of the others do. So you look at NSERC and OCI and our tsunami funding. So getting industry to recognize that you're putting time in, you're putting materials in, not just cash towards a project, means that you have no choice, but you have to work with us. We run our projects, community talked about project management. So all of our projects are run as an agile development project, even if they're not software related, because again, we need that almost weekly, if not more often, touch point with the industry partner, make sure that students are on track, that the project is meeting the needs and so forth. And that helps obviously collect their in-kind contributions as well at the same time. And again, at the end of the day, it's that expectation setting. We're not consultants, we're not KPMG, we're not Ernst & Young and so forth. We are college training students, so we're here to help. If you're expecting a commercializable ready product the day that the project ends and you have to do nothing else, then don't come to us. That's not what we're here for. So so to that effect, all of our collaboration agreements explicitly spell out the fact that, again, at the end of the day, it's high quality prototypes that we are providing to you. And the expectation is at the end of the tech transfer, you're going to take that next step to make this commercializable as a company. And I think, again, we're very successful when we get that message across to our industry partners. We're extremely successful in generating the end results that make industry happy and want to come back to work with us.
Mhm.
So Emily, in Mitacs, you must run into some of these cultural differences as the partners start to work together. What do you see as the best way, in your experience, to mitigate the different cultures coming together to work on a project collaboratively, as Ig pointed out?
Yeah, really, I guess further to Camelia's point is really just setting those expectations early on. I think that's the most important thing. And that's something that us at Mitacs, we really try to reinforce that early on in the conversation. So typically, if we have a company that comes to us, they really want to have started this yesterday, perhaps they even wanted their product ready and ready to go yesterday. We really have to bring them to, a common ground that is realistic. At the end of the day, these are students, these are postdocs, undergrads. You're not working with a consulting company, and so it is different. There is usually, for the most part, an external review process for all of the proposals that we submit, and so there's time dedicated to that, and that really just helps reinforce the merit of the project. And so it's an important step. And so, yeah, really just setting those expectations, talking about past experiences. One thing I always try to ask companies when I meet them for the first time is, have you ever collaborated with academic researchers? Because that will usually give me a good sense if they're familiar with how long things take, versus, no, we have never done this before, or maybe we've had co-op students that can start, day one and kind of get going. But yeah, really just making sure that everyone's on the same page.
Well, and we talked about communication a lot in this panel, and I think that that's key, obviously, to every collaboration, regardless of what area it's in. But it seems to me that trust and communication are the two biggest components. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that in terms of setting up a good partnership, Camelia.
I was going to add something because Emily made me remember this when she was talking. I think that the whole idea of, these are students, needs to be reinforced, because there is a mentorship component to this whole thing that companies don't often understand. These are not consultants. You're not paying consultant fees. So I think that's something that personally I always found very frustrating, because, you know, these are people that have most likely never worked in industry. So you're, you know, it's also your job to mentor them a little bit, especially when I was at MyTax earlier in my career. It was, you know, I don't know if it's still a requirement, Emily, but like they had to go into the office for a certain number of hours. And, you know, sometimes I'd get there and like no one would talk to them. They like get no guidance, and then they'd come back and they'd like tell me, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, I don't know. So anyway, so that whole sort of mentorship element, I think is so important as part of the whole partnership thing. Sorry, just Emily made me think.
Well, no,
of that.
that's actually important, because you need to communicate that at the beginning. And, you know, going back to the question, it's about communication, not just about, well, this is what this researcher works on, but this is what you can expect working in an academic environment versus in a industry, in a business environment where the goals are much different. And, you know, mentorship maybe doesn't come up as an issue unless you specifically communicate that that's something that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also related to communication, this is something that I run into often, and you can tell sometimes universities, you know, they hire people from industry into some of these roles. Like I understand the reasoning because of the connection and stuff, but it's important to learn to speak the researcher language when you're working at the university. Sometimes, you know, when you're working in industry, you're impressed by titles like, oh, this is the CTO or the CEO or the VP, whatever. I can tell you, profs couldn't care less. Like, profs do not care what someone's title is. So if you're going to start your conversation with, oh, so the VP of technical whatever innovation at BlackBerry, I'm not picking a company, I shouldn't name companies, any company. If that's how you're going to start your conversation or your email to the prof, they're just they don't care. They don't care.
But that's the cultural difference again.
Yeah.
That's completely
But
the
if you
cultural
tell them, hey, you know that project you're working on this topic, it seems like these people at X company are really interested on, and they're coming to campus on this day. Would you like to tell them about this cool project you're working on? Then they'll be more excited, because they're excited to share what they're doing. Not, profs don't like to be, profs don't have a boss. So that's just a cultural thing, right? At the university. So to them, titles don't matter. So if you're saying you have to come and do this because the CTO is here, that's not a way to convince them. And you just sound too corporate to them. So you can't sound too corporate inside of the academia. So that's a lesson I learned pretty quickly, because I think that's something that I always tell everybody that I know that's in partnerships, because it's just, they don't care.
That's the cultural. It's a completely different world. Ig, you're also nodding vigorously. So what can you add to that?
We could be interchangeable, I think, in their experiences. You know, getting to the question about trust to communication, I think, you know, again, as I mentioned, when you have collaborative applied research, you have no choice. You have to be communicating on a regular basis, you know, and I think this is something that we get the industry partners to recognize right up front. It's that, you know, we're not going to have a project started tomorrow. There's just no way. So we're going to spend some time, you know, 2, 3, 4 weeks sometimes, meeting on a regular basis, understanding the scope of the project. You know, de-scoping is necessary based on the talent and faculty that are available to support the project. Sometimes increasing scope when we have assurances that we have the subject matter expertise available. You know, to gain the trust of the industry partners, we look at, in many cases, you know, hey, let's start off with a small project. You know, we don't have to rush into a relationship right from day one and expect 12 months or 16 months worth of applied research activity to just, you know, appear in one shot. So we, in many cases, look at smaller, you know, introductory projects that help, again, establish, you know, the industry partner trusting us our ability to solve these problems. And industry loves that because it's low cost to them, minimal commitment. Some of the funds that we have available to us, our Smart Center is one of 60 technology access centers across Canada at the college system funded by NSERC. And through that network, we have the ability to utilize some IRAP funding to establish these very small 20-hour collaboration opportunities with industry. And those are perfect to establish that, that initial, baby step towards building a relationship. So we take advantage of these types of techniques to get the industry partner to trust that we can do this. And then again, really build and I don't want to say harp on it, but it really have to keep on top of them to say, A, you have to be collecting contributions, and B, this communications is so important because again, our students are not just being mentored by our faculty, but they're being mentored by you as the industry partner at the same time. So that has to happen as part of every project, and it works. It works so well. And that's why we have such a high degree of success at the end of the day with these industry partner projects.
This has been such a great, and we could go on for a long time, but we only have less than 5 minutes left. I don't see any questions in the chat. So I'm going to ask one last question before we close off. And that's, what advice do you wish you had received as you had started working as part of these collaborations? Is there something you wish that you could provide to the audience now as sort of a starting point for setting up these collaborations? Emily, I'm going to start with you.
That's a good question. Yeah, it's challenging because I'm a bit removed from the actual collaboration that takes place. I think just, really staying up to date on what's going on. I mean, things are changing all the time. Funding programs are changing, eligibility is changing, really just staying in tune with what's happening in your region, what's happening, in the area that you focus on, is advice that I would provide anyone who's looking to do these types of collaborations. And even for myself, just to have a better understanding of where to look to help support and facilitate these introductions or, project opportunities. Certainly just staying, aware of what's going on in our, ever-changing world.
And it's so important because things changed day to day, minute to minute. So you have to keep up. Camelia?
I think to me, a big thing, I worked in partnerships for maybe 6 years, a while. So anyway, and the whole time, not the whole time, but for a long time, I used to feel like I'm not accomplishing anything. It's just that kind of job. So I wish someone had told me that, because it's, like I said, these things take a long time, and you sometimes will go weeks or months and there's nothing, and you're just feeling like, what am I even doing? I'm so unproductive. This sucks. So it's very easy to demotivate yourself in a role like this. And I wish someone had told me that it's okay to feel like that, because it's part of the job. And if you can, then a few years down the road, what I learned to do is that I would set a goal that I knew I could accomplish for the week. So, maybe talk to 5 different researchers and 5 different companies, just have a chat with them, or whatever, or depends of what I was talking about. So then at least I learned to train myself to show that I'm actually accomplishing something. That was a big one for me, because it's easy to just kind of say, this sucks, I'm not good at this, I don't know what's happening. And then and then there's a time when there's 5 different things going on, and you're just like, oh, I can't handle this. So, I think I wish someone had told me this is the type of job this is. It's okay to feel like you're completely unproductive because you're juggling so many different things at once.
Well, I think what you said about partnerships take time. And I think that that's the important message here, is that things don't happen overnight. So you have to be patient. And some of us are less patient or more patient than others. Ig, I'm going to leave it to you to close us out.
Okay. I don't think I can add anything more in terms of again, what advice I should have had. Maybe somebody should have told me how much fun I would be having working in this partnership area, because I came from industry, running my own business, faculty at the college, an academic chair, now in research. So I've worn all the hats. So for me, this is just a great role to be in, because I'm connecting students and industry, and that's what it's all about. I think advice to any of the industry folks as attendees: get connected, connect with your local universities, connect with your local colleges, understand what they're offering in terms of innovation support, connect with the funders. Again, OCI has got people on this boots on the street looking at funding projects. MyTax is doing it, NSERC is doing it. The college system has something called SONAVI, the Southern Ontario Network for Advanced Manufacturing Innovation. They have business developers that are ready to connect industry with the appropriate college expertise. So take advantage of that, because so much is available to assist industry in solving their challenges, and we're here to help.
Well, this has been great. Thank you all so much for your time. Thanks everyone for attending. And I want to thank the partners who put this webinar together, and that's CSCAN, InfoCan, and Profound Impact, who put together this webinar and our next one, which we'll talk about success factors, and we'll have panelists who can talk about the successful industry researcher collaborations they've worked on and what has made those a success. You can see that on the slide that's up, that webinar will take place on April 20th at 3 p.m. and you can register via this QR code, or contact Cheryl Petrosevic or Gina Van Dalen at these email addresses that are on the screen. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good evening and a good weekend, and we'll see you in April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.